Mourning is a conscious response to a specific death. Melancholia, conversely, is unconscious. The loss cannot be physically seen. In mourning, the world is empty. In melancholia, the ego itself is hollowed out. Freud said, "Happiness comes from a sudden satisfaction of needs which have been dammed up to a high degree. A surplus of pleasure is an overexposure to the pleasure principle, where pleasure is omnipresent and we have become deadened to it. The lost object can be digested, and reality testing, that is, going out into the world and coming back to the self, is stunted. In this scenario, sadism directed at the ego is melancholia. It is regarded as an open psychic wound, drawing to itself cathectic energies, emptying the ego until it is totally impoverished. Central to melancholia is a regression to the oral stage of libidinal development. The ego wants to incorporate the lost object into itself by devouring it. Exclusive devotion to melancholia leaves no room for interest in the outside world. The ego is absorbed in sadness and gets stuck. The melancholic identifies ego with hated objects and reviles itself. Nostalgia, effectively, is a longing for a reunion with the homeland, a desperate attempt to achieve an imagined topographic wholeness. Nostalgia stems from an alienation in one's current surroundings. The feeling of nostalgia derives from the gap between the idealized home and the strange reality that is confronted. It is also an expression of man's alienation from himself, from his roots, and from the earth. To limit the identity of these yearnings specifically to Russia would be to reduce the dimensions of the film. The loss of habitat has now become a worldwide ecological problem, with man fast destroying his own natural environment. Home is also a place within the heart, a scrap of language, lines of verse that cannot be translated, memory, time past or future visions. The film is a document of the search for a new universal harmony, a theme to which Tarkovsky addresses himself increasingly in his later years. The impossibility of translation becomes the main discursive thread of Nostalghia. Tensions between Andrei and Eugenia are not solely a result of any gender power struggle. Andrei believes that Eugenia, a professional translator, is deluded in her belief that an artistic artifact or human emotion can be transplanted from one cultural tradition into another. Ironically, he adheres to the Italian rhyming epigram, "A translator is a traitor." Andrei cannot share his anxiety over the impossibility of translation with Eugenia, whose professional raison d'être is to translate. Eugenia owns Andrei Tarkovsky's poems translated into Italian and exclaims, "I'm not just an interpreter. Sometimes I try to improve the words of those who use my services." Removal of national frontiers, or borders between states, would, in Andrei's opinion, make space into a homogeneous entity, solving problems of translating one culture into another. Translation is seen here as a sort of movement in space, a transference or removal, or conveyance from one person, place, or condition to another. He collapses the frontiers between different states of mind, conscious reality and unconscious dream zone. Doubling and substitution undermine uniform notions of space and time. Andrei overcomes his location in an alien land by undermining stability of space and time. Doubling and substitution are also inherent qualities of translation. The idea of the uncanny, something that is both homely and intolerably alien at the same time, is analogous to the otherness produced by translation, which, by definition, deals with ideas of the familiar and the foreign. Domenico is Andrei's alter ego. It is a case of merged identities, a way to resolve the conflicts of exiled. Deformity and disrepair of architectural constructions in Nostalghia signify the ultimate impossibility of translation. As Nariman Skakov explains in Labyrinths of Space and Time, deformed buildings are flawed semblances of the completed ideal of a house or other structure. Domenico's house, the flooded church, and the ruins of San Galgano Abbey all undermine the concept of a building as some kind of a shelter that provides refuge for human beings. Their deficiency, their dilapidated or non-existent roofs, decreases the possibility for these buildings to hide or conceal. Indeed, their openness grants a direct link with the celestial stratum. In a similar way, translation discloses a tension between two foreign linguistic systems, although full reconciliation is never possible, remaining only within the realm of hope. Therefore, translation is a spatial incompleteness longing for a time of wholeness, totality, and unity. Nostalghia becomes a longing for unity, which is aware of its own impossibility. The ruined building is always a symbol of sentimental nostalgia for something that has perished and is painfully absent. The desired object of space is always removed. Lacan first proposes his formula, Il n'y a pas de rapport sexuel, in 1970, and takes it up again in his seminar of 1972-73. This formula is usually translated into English as, there is no such thing as a sexual relationship, which is misleading since Lacan is certainly not denying that people have sex. The formula might be better rendered as, there is no relation between the sexes. There is no direct, unmediated relation between the male and the female sexual positions, because the other of language stands between them as a third party. Between male and female human beings, there is no such thing as an instinctive relationship, because all sexuality is marked by the signifier, Lacan said. There is no reciprocity between the male and the female positions, because symbolic order is asymmetrical. There is no corresponding signifier that could signify woman in the same way that the male sex is symbolized. There is thus no symbol for a symmetrical sexual relationship. The sexual relationship cannot be written. Relations between men and women can never be. Love is an illusion designed to make up for the absence of harmonious relations between the sexes. There is no such thing as sexual relationship, only between a subject and a partial object. For the man, the object A occupies the place of the missing partner. In other words, the woman does not exist for the man as a real subject, but only as a fantasy object, the cause of his desire. Tarkovsky's female characters are either relegated to a domestic service role or are elevated to motherhood or a saintliness. Andrei's wife is called Maria, like Tarkovsky's mother herself. He even compares his wife to the Madonna by Della Francesca. Why do women have more faith than men? Eugenia asks. In the sacristan's view, a woman's role in life is to have children, which is a great sacrifice. Only in Andrei's dreams is Eugenia allowed to penetrate his armor of indifference. She lies on top of him, in the safety of his fantasy, on the bed of the hotel. This vision shows Eugenia united in an embrace with Andrei's wife Maria, and later Maria pregnant. Tarkovsky suppresses the painful seductions of Eugenia and Italy, overcoming the temptations of the flesh by banishing them to the realm of Andrei's dreams. Eugenia complains that Andrei is an intellectual who locked her up. This is precisely the narrative of Domenico's family, as he locks them up for many years. Freud discussed screen memories, recollection of early childhood, possibly falsely recalled or magnified in importance, masking another memory of deep emotional significance. He was fascinated by screen memories. He observed, Not only some, but all of what is essential in childhood has been retained in these screen memories. It is simply a question of knowing how to extract it out of them by analysis. They represent the forgotten years of childhood as adequately as the manifest content of a dream represents the dream thoughts. Exceptionally sharp and seemingly innocuous, retained due to the link with repressed content, screen memories literally mask repressed memories. Analysis of screen memories leads to indelible childhood experiences and unconscious fantasies, usually of a sexual nature. Phenomenologically, screen memories present themselves with a clarity and persistence that contrasts with the banality and innocence of their content. The subject himself is surprised that the memories should have survived at all. Controversy around false memories is itself a false debate. With reference to the reality of the event that is being recalled, memories are always, by definition, false. In terms of the subjective experience of the one who is remembering, they are always, by definition, true. Hence, from a psychoanalytic perspective, memories are always simultaneously objectively false and subjectively true, and this can be the starting point for a re-evaluation of Freud's significance for contemporary scientific discussions on the substance and functions of memory. Screen memories are shams. What is recorded is the psychical element associated with the objectionable one. They aren't made of gold themselves, but lain beside something golden. Compromise formations, such as parapraxies, slips of the tongue, and symptoms, their survival cannot be understood so long as it is sought in the repressed content via the mechanism of displacement. Lacan's 1960 seminar, The Ethics of Psychoanalysis, refers to the drama by Sophocles. Antigone is a daughter of Oedipus and Jocasta. She persists in her wish to bury her brother Polynices, an outlaw. Her uncle Creon, king of Thebes, offers many arguments to stop her, and even threatens to kill her if she disobeys. Despite this, Antigone remains faithful to her wish, unwilling to compromise her desire, and buries her brother anyway. In doing so, she gives up the comfort of Creon's palace and is sentenced to death, locked up and left to starve. Lacan's seminar upheld Antigone as a paragon of ethical conduct because she acts in conformity with her desire. Antigone has a certain attraction to the beyond, characterized by the Greek word ate, which means ruin or folly. She moves toward her ruin. Lacan calls her inhuman, her desire aiming beyond ate. Antigone's law has no ledger. Rejecting Creon's orders, the laws she follows are unwritten, invoking something not developed in any signifying chain. Polynices occupies, in Antigone's discourse, an immovable and irreplaceable position. Occupying a space between two deaths, she can see life for what it is, now that she is here at this strange limit. The chorus becomes astounded, blinded by her beauty, losing level-headed impartiality and deference to civil law. Antigone becomes petrified with the desire to die. Andrei fulfills the promise to Domenico by carrying a candle from one end of the Bagno Vignoni pool to the other without letting it go out. The absurd task becomes a spiritual quest. The world will be saved if the Russian accomplishes the task, but bearing a candle demands care and concentration. It becomes a giving of the self. Andrei shelters the candle with the edge of his coat, with his body and his whole being. Andrei burns himself out, he literally dies, while accomplishing the mission, like an extinguished candle. However, his self-sacrifice is not in vain. The sequence is filmed in one continuous take and lasts almost 9 minutes. As Nariman Skakov explains in Labyrinths of Space and Time, the task given to the actor was to enter the domain of time and to display an entire human life in one shot, without any editing, from beginning to end, from birth to the very moment of death. The reservoir where the character wanders is no longer filled with water. It contains pure time. Water, as a metaphor for time, evaporates and allows time to emerge as an almost palpable entity. The marker of temporal progression is spatial. The burning candle, which goes out twice in the airstreams, functions as a yardstick for Andrei's temporal advancement. The passage of time reveals itself in the space of the empty pool in which time is enveloped. Domenico's self-immolation is preceded by an impassioned speech delivered from the equestrian statue of Marcus Aurelius in the Piazza del Campidoglio at Capitoline Hill. Domenico's view is of a world out of balance, where materialism has swamped intrinsic spiritual values, where man lives in spiritual exile. Exile is as much a spiritual state as a geographical, political, or social condition, and only through belief and faith can one come to terms with it, Tarkovsky suggested. Domenico urges the dispersed audience, patients of mental institutions who are uninterested in the speech, to regain an ability to listen to nature. He advocates a more authentic and spiritual life. Domenico's aim is to overcome man's alienation. His utopian vision is to change the values of the world.